Across the Park podcast is proud to be sponsored by Globe Gas and Heating. For the best kitchen and bathroom renovations, boiler servicing and repair, and central and underfloor heating in the Northwest, head over to globecentralheating.com and quote Across the Park for a free quote.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Across the Park podcast. Oh my God, it is so good to be back. Obviously, I'd love to be sitting in the studio, Millsy, and giving you an actual high five and speaking to you across the table. But unfortunately, as our work commitments have had it and our personal lives have had it, it's been quite difficult. One of my New Year's resolutions is absolutely to spend more time on Across the Park podcast and less time on a certain reg podcast that I'm on. There's a reg podcast. So anyway, that's my commitment to you Blues for 2025 already. It is nice to be back. Obviously, we are going to get into less positive and optimistic topics on this podcast, but that's what being on an Everton podcast is about. Just want to say a massive thank you, as always, to Lee at Globe Gas and Heating, or Globe Heating and Gas, been a massive supporter of the podcast for quite some time. And despite what my background might lead you to believe, it's freezing out there at the moment. So I'm sure there's plenty of people who are after his services for new boilers and a nice new hot bathroom for the upcoming winter. So Millsy, again, we did record our podcast after the match on Saturday. It didn't go to plan, as our socials will have told our followers and listeners. But apologies to those who did try and listen to it and didn't have the best of experiences. But it was in keeping with the day itself, I think it's fair to say. We are going to obviously speak about the Brentford game first and foremost. I have got social media questions aplenty from our followers, which we always appreciate. But first and foremost, just the general post-mortem from the game.
Yeah, well, we done the instant match reaction, didn't we? Like you said, and it was fresh, and we know what we said. I don't think our audience know what we said, so it might be a little bit different now. I've had a little bit of time to cool down, and my instant reaction was my instant reaction was like, I'm getting sick of this. I'm getting sick of teams coming to Goodison and us setting up. We set up against Brentford how we set up against Liverpool, and it doesn't seem to be different ideas on how to win games. I still feel that a couple of days removed, to be honest. I still feel that looking back, and I've watched the highlights, and you know, me and you've had a chat, and we've chatted to our other Blue friends and things, and as the usual WhatsApp post-mortem, I just feel it's ugly football. I feel it's really, really ugly to watch. It's designed to get a football club safe, and let's start by giving him his flowers. For 2 years, under some extreme circumstances, he has kept us safe, and fingers crossed he does do it again this year. But one of the things I spoke about to you, Judgy, just to bring you into it, is one of our big threats that we've had over the past 2 years. Teams have cottoned onto it. That Tarkowski at the back post, you know, that's not working anymore. And when that's not working, Everton aren't scoring goals. And you know yourself, you don't score goals, you don't win football games.
Yeah, and I think just that on its own almost sums up part of the frustration of fans. So it was one of the first things that Sean Dyche's done was introduce that set play, and it was great. Like we'd had such a poor time under Frank Lampard from set plays, and it was good to see Everton being effective at set plays again, because like it or not, that's been the bedrock of this club for quite some time. Even in the 80s, when we were massively successful, we were very, very adept at scoring from set plays, and teams dreaded coming to Goodison. Oh, here's a corner. Oh my God, you know, this is a certain goal. And I think that the fans latched onto that initially, but now it's the same set play time and time again. No variation. Exactly. If there is ever a short corner, they're so woefully poor at it that it just gets equal amounts of groans from the fans. And just on that, I mean, you know, we've almost become renowned as fans at Goodison for being, you know, having a bit of a short fuse and getting frustrated quite quickly and being negative. I thought the fans up until the last whistle were fully supportive of the team. Obviously, the substitutions at times and the timing of the substitutions was frustrating, but despite what the media might have you think and other fan groups might have you think, we weren't, we weren't booing or whatever, booing the players or anything. It was just at times when we felt we could have more players in the box, and there's crosses coming in, no one's getting on the ends of them. But yeah, I think that the set plays and the lack of variety, the lack of ideas from set plays is almost symptomatic of everything else on the pitch. It's the same thing over and over again. A lack of ideas, a lack of confidence, and obviously, some people might say, "Oh, the manager can't make players feel confidence." Every day, that's a job every single day of the week, is getting the players out there, breathing some confidence into them, getting your arm around them, whatever your style is. I'm not saying you need a Jurgen Klopp and big hugs all the time, but it is absolutely your job as manager and the coaching team to make the players or get the players feeling confidence and just inject some positivity into them. We're going to come on and talk about Calvert-Lewin, and there's going to be obviously a different perspectives to that. But there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that I don't think I've seen Calvert-Lewin lacking confidence as much as he is at the moment. And he almost tries to go out of his way, Calvert-Lewin, to puff his chest out and to make himself look as though he's the man. But he's struggling massively. He is getting chances and half chances, but his decision-making and his conviction in the final thirds is massively lacking. And that is a job for the coaching team and the managers to try and work with, amongst many others.
Yeah, and the simple answer for me, for the management team, would be to bring him out the side, because I don't think I think the closer we've got to January, where there's, look, I think he leaves in January. I just think we get a bit of money and he goes. I think at the price that we're selling for, he's probably a really good squad player for a number of Premier League clubs who will take that. He's just disinterested, Judgy. He's disinterested around. Me and you aren't big fans of Beto, but Beto's more of a threat than Calvert-Lewin is. Beto can't. He struggles to finish, and he struggles to stay on his feet a lot. But the impact that Beto has in 15 minutes is greater than what Calvert-Lewin has in 75. And that, to me, we talked about Calvert-Lewin at the start of the season looking really fit. And I think he got a couple of goals at the start of the season. I thought he was going to make life difficult in relation to, he's going to be irreplaceable almost. But it's all he's proved to me, Calvert-Lewin, is he is replaceable, because he's not doing what we need him to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Beto coming on at the weekends, we'll come on to the timing of that substitution, but Beto coming on at the weekends, instantly, he's demanding the ball in the box. Like, he's running in a pace, and he misses that, very, very good chance at the Gladys Street. But it was his aggression of going, get the ball in, and it was, it's so obvious that he wants the ball in the box. He's steaming into the box at pace. And I just think there's none of that. There's none of that determination to get in the box. There's none of that aggression.
He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to fight the centre half. Better will fight the centre half for it. Calvert-Lewin doesn't no more. He's lost. That's gone from his game completely. Now I don't know if that's a conscious thing. I don't know, it's a conscious thing with his injuries maybe, or he has just took his foot off the pedal. But I don't see him dueling. I don't see him fighting centre halves anymore.
The last time he done that was the derby last year.
Yeah.
In my eyes. Just to touch, I mean, I'll put Smigger's question from I believe it's from Twitter. Thoughts on Dominic Calvert-Lewin starting every game, despite never scoring. Does Dyche owe his dad money?
Maybe he does. Look, I don't know. I don't. One thing I don't think it is I don't think it's shop window, because we know that there's an offer on the table from the club for him to stay. So it's not shop window. We're not looking to get any money for him. I think the club do want to keep him. I think Sean Dyche thinks that he's our best striker, and Sean Dyche could be right in a lot of ways. But we had this last year with Lewin. He went, what did he go, 20 games without scoring? And I think we brought Beto in against West Ham, and Beto scored. And then Beto didn't score the next game, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin was right back in. He's just a manager's preference, is he? I think it's time for Beto to get a run, and I hope Broyer's got something about him, because it'd be nice if we get Broyer in and he gets a couple of goals and he starts having duels, because this ugly football, it needs a centre half to fight, a centre forward to fight. If you don't have a centre forward who's going to fight, then the long ball is pointless.
Without doubt, yeah. And we're going to come on to the actual game itself now, because I guess the big talking point is the opportunity when the sending off happens, and I just want to touch on the manager's comments post game. And to some extent, I do agree with him. I thought we did start okay. I thought we had a decent start to the game. Yet, you look at the stats, less possession, one more shot on target, and XG half of what Brentford's were. So despite the fact that from the manager's point of view, he believes we had a very, very good first half, we were still second best in terms of the best chance coming in that half, or best chances coming to Brentford, where they should have scored. Second half, we've had loads of possession, but done absolutely nothing, which didn't surprise me. I think and it goes back to the first point around set plays. What is utterly frustrating and annoying for the fans, for me, is that you've had a sending off, obviously, at the end of the first half, and we've made no effort whatsoever to change things at half time. It's a different game. The minute that sending off happens, it's a completely different game. On training grounds across the world, at all levels of football, from semi-pro up to professional, I know for a fact that decent coaches, decent management teams are training scenarios. What happens if we go a man down ourselves? What happens if the opposition goes a man down? We switch to this formation. This player maybe comes and plays in that spot instead of that spot. I'm not being naive here. You know yourself, and a lot of our followers know. I've worked in football long enough to know that happens.
Yeah.
I am absolutely convinced from what we've seen at the weekend that's never happened at Finch Farm ever.
We've seen similar. We've seen similar this season, and you called it out. I remember we went 2-0 up against Villa, and you said there was no plan for us to go 2-0 up.
No, and again, again, I can't stress enough from my point of view. I've got a lot of respect for Sean Dyche, the job he's done, but the situation and the position we're in now, and the behaviours and the action or lack of action from the management and the coaching team, in light of glaring, ineptitude from certain players and systems, is just utterly alarming. Like I can't stress how poor it is from the management team. And that particularly at the weekend, we go a man down, no changes, no change really in mentality, no risk taking, nobody making efforts to get in the box. The fullbacks, and this is what I said in the instant match reaction, the fullbacks are still flat with the centre halves. They're not going beyond the wingers. They're not overlapping. They're not getting inside the wing. There was nothing different whatsoever in terms of the behaviours of those players. And there was a obvious attempt from Sean Dyche and his staff to get the players to not commit and not take risks. They were scared of conceding the goal against Brentford on the break still. That is not the mentality that gets you away from a relegation fight and gets you more points in this league.
No, it's not. I'm a fan of Brentford, and I think Thomas Frank's done a very good job. I think they're not a bad model for a Championship to Premier League club to follow. They're probably one of the best models, really, to just do well and live within your means. But our manager came out and after the game and he said, look, they're no mugs. I've got to disagree. I think this season Brentford have been mugs. They concede goals all the time. That's the first point on the road. Like it happens again at West Ham. The other week I said to you, West Ham was more unforgivable than the Southampton game, because Southampton will always, that's a collective unit who are behind their coach, and the fans buy into what they try and do, and they're just going to try and pick points up along the way. And that those results will always happen at Southampton, but West Ham were almost gone. Their fans were ready to boo their team on the ball. The manager was getting stick. We didn't go there and try and win. Yeah. Then we come to Goodison Park. We play against a 10-man team who are leaking that many goals that when they go to 10 men, those players must have panicked. They must have went and dressed room at half time and thought, I hope the big man doesn't come on here, or I hope they don't change it. I hope they stay as they are. And we did. We stayed as we are. The same as West Ham must have thought. I hope Everton don't come and try and kick us and really go at us and make half hands turn on us. We didn't. We went there and played the same way, where it's that ball down that annoying ball that our fullbacks are told to play down the flank, so Dominic Calvert-Lewin can draw a foul and the centre halves go up. And like I said at the start of the show, teams have now cottoned onto it. The Ronstadt Tarkowski set piece, we haven't changed it. We just don't. We don't have a plan B. We don't. And when teams are getting onto us and we're not scoring goals, it's scary. And you touched upon there was a few groans and stuff. I thought the fans were brilliant. The 1878 and what they're doing was unbelievable. Another great display. Big Colin Harvey banner and Z cars hits and the fans are behind the red cards. Everton get cheered back on in the second half, and everything was there. It was dark. It was Goodison Park, and it's not aligned anymore. It just doesn't feel, when I go to the match, it doesn't feel like I'm excited to go. I sort of know what I'm getting into. Leaving most games fed up. And this is the last season at Goodison Park where we've gone from thinking, most of our conversations on here about Goodison Park and the last game at Goodison Park have been, what a celebration it'll be. I'm starting to get a bit scared now that it's going to be another Crystal Palace Bournemouth game.
It's absolutely not helping as well that he's now making an effort on a consistent basis to alienate the fans or to make it us against you. You know, he can't help but drop some kind of digging. You know, the fans get impatient quite quickly. You know, 31 minutes it took him from the sending off to when we made the change. 31 minutes to make any obvious change whatsoever, and that was the double substitution. Of which one of the changes you could argue was a partially negative one. Now I think Takore was poor all game. To be fair, Beto for Lindstrom, you know, positive substitution. Okay, yeah, 31 minutes too late, or certainly at the very, very least 17 minutes. You know, 15, 17 minutes. Yeah. If not 27 minutes too late. Mangala for Takore. How on earth is a Judgy guy played the whole game?
Now the Lindstrom one there, it should have took 10 minutes of that second half to drag him off, because he stunk in the first half, and then okay, now can we use his pace against 10 men? No, we're not using it. Jack Harrison should have come on there for me.
I honestly think from the moment the opposition goes down to 10 men, you're either getting really wide and high, so you need two wingers on there, or you're getting an extra forward in there and you're getting direct and you're pumping, you know what I mean? You're really putting the opposition on the back foot. We done neither. We had obviously we had Ndiaye and McNeil constantly flipping. I think Ndiaye starts at 10, moved out, McNeil come inside. Neither one of them wanted to hug the touchline. So we needed to get, for me, I'd have put Lindstrom, as I said, go and stand on that touchline, right on the shoulder of the fullback on the right-hand touchline. Harrison, for some reason, he never, ever wants to play Harrison on the left, even though he's got a left foot, and that's where he has his best times at Leeds. You go and hug the left touchline. You take a Judgy guy off. You put whatever, keep Ndiaye on there, but whatever happens, get two wingers on there. Start putting balls in the box.
Yeah.
There was nothing whatsoever at the half-time point that gave them any issues. The fact they didn't even have to make a change themselves.
No.
By the way, they made the change first. They made the two changes and then we followed them. So it was like the manager was going, I want to see what they do first before I make my changes. Mm-hmm. Even that is just fucking pathetic. Pathetic.
It feels to me like we're looking at the bigger picture here. And this can't be helped, but it just feels like it's gone on too long now. If Sean Dyche would have had an 18-month contract and Bramley Moore was ready this summer just gone, then I think everyone can sort of deal with it. It's the fact that we're having such a prolonged period of bad football now where we don't see improvements. Hands are tied at the football club. He's not being given a war chest and he's working within certain limitations, but that shouldn't stop him having a plan B and a plan C. And I think it feels now like it did when Allardyce was in, where it was sort of like, I can't really watch this anymore. Don't hate the guy, but it's just not for me. This football club and you aren't matched, aren't aligned. It feels it's such a shame that we've had to bring a manager in that is just a firefighter. But the bigger picture for me is if Sean Dyche can't keep us up, then who on earth can? Because he's been brought in for the sole purpose, steady the ship for Bramley Moore. You get a nice big payoff, which he got a bonus in his first season, didn't he? So he's had the riches for that. And I feel like I'm really worried if we get to a point where we've got to relieve him of his duties. I mean, we spoke on Saturday, which wasn't aired. The Friedkin group are coming in any minute now. They look like a board who won't tolerate bad performances. The two Roman coaches have gone already. I really don't know where we go. I think it's great for us to come on and say we're unhappy. But I actually don't know what the alternative is, and that's really scary for me.
Well, we have got some questions on that note. I'll go to Gav first. Charlie Blue, 1988. Do people who want the manager gone not realise the field of managers available would be a bigger risk than getting behind him and letting him do his job? The job he's done over the job that he's done well over the past 2 years.
Well, I'll let you expand on that a bit more, but I don't think the fans aren't behind them really. I think there's no big dice out protest. You get the social media and you get some podcasts of fans who aren't happy, but I generally think the fans,
I think
in an ideal scenario, would like us to get to May and change the manager in May because we're 14th again.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last sentence he's put in there, getting him behind him and letting him do his job. I don't quite know what your job is as manager if it's not to try and get the best out of players and get points where they're available. Saturday was our best chance of getting points for a long, long time, and he's made no effort to try and do that or to go out of his way to try and do that. So your job as manager is to obviously keep the team together and so on, but your job is to get points. And he's the first person to say that. You know, your job here as manager is to win points. And he says that to try and defend himself and his own tactics at times. Now, if that's your mantra and that's what you're saying, you've not done your job on Saturday, and you've not done your job at West Ham, you've not done your job at Southampton, because they were glaringly opportunities for us to win points by playing more positively, by adopting a slightly different style of football, and by taking more risks. So he's not doing his job. Everyone who listens to the show knows that I've been a supporter of Sean Dyche, because I think and I think most people acknowledge this, he's been working under tough circumstances, but I think generally he has actually got the most out of these players. I don't believe that's the case by any stretch at this moment in time, and it certainly wasn't the case for a massive period of last season where he was lucky to keep his job as well. So you can have periods, I think, as manager where you go, okay, you've got over them, you've shown you can get past them. I don't think he's going to get that period this time because, as you say, the new owners are coming in. We've got a shocking run of fixtures where I can't see how we get points in some of them games unless he changes things. And look, if he changes things and we get points, then he's doing his job. And I think the Everton fans would be happy to get behind him for the period of the rest of the season if that's the case. I don't have faith that's going to happen.
No, he believes that his plan is the plan. And he very, very rarely veers from it. In game, he doesn't veer from it, setting the team up. Even last season, we went nearly 4 months without winning a league game. And me and you could name the sides every Saturday at half one. We knew what was coming. We knew what striker would play. We knew what midfielders would play. We knew what wingers would play. The only change he's made this season, and I think it's been forced upon him, is he's put McNeil in a central area, which did have some fruits at the start of the season. But again, I think the manager outlines in a really good interview with Joe Thomas in the Echo last week that neither McNeil or Ndiaye, in his opinion, are a 10. We are just having to fill the hole because Doucouré is required to come further back now due to losing Onana. We need that physicality where in the middle of the pitch. So he's fell upon that change. That's not something that someone he sat down and said, here's what I'm going to try and implement it. There's a forced change he's done, but again, you're right. It's
I'm sorry though.
He doesn't seem to be able to change.
I'm sorry that even that is absolute nonsense for me. You're working with Premier League footballers. There's no way you're telling me that you can't work with Dwight McNeil or Ndiaye, which for me are probably two of the most intelligent players in the squad in terms of their movements and their general attacking, the creativity or whatever. There's no way you can't work with them on a consistent basis to play effectively as a 10. I'm sorry that's nonsense, and it's a cop out. It's an absolute cop out. What he's saying is, if I had the money, I could go out and buy a 10. You've never bought a 10, Sean. When have you ever bought a 10? It was Jay Rodriguez, is it? You've never bought a 10 in as long as you've been a manager. So it's a cop out. I think he's got two very decent footballers there who are more than able, if they're coached and if a system is built, to play as 10s. But he's not got the tools as a manager, and his coaching team have not got the tools to get that out of them. That's the reality.
If the Friedkin group, let's just hypothetically say the Friedkin group come in and they don't like what they see, they don't like what they've seen so far, would you be hoping that the next appointment is an ambitious one and the plan starts in January, or do you think that has to bring a sort of firefighter in just to save the season?
I think you need a manager or a coach who is pragmatic enough to know the situation we're in. It is not going to be trying to play over expansive football, who knows the English game, who knows the club, who's going to get the fans on side. It's been mentioned on a few Everton podcasts, but it was certainly pushed by me recently as well in our own WhatsApp groups. I don't think this would be the appointment that they'd go for. But Lee Carsley, to me, stands out as an absolute obvious candidate for the reasons that the fans would get behind him more than anything. I think he knows the club. I think he's pragmatic enough as being a coach, a manager who's worked in the Championship, to know that you can't always win by playing great football, and you sometimes do have to win ugly. I think he's shown his ability to mix things up on, with the national squads, and the ability to manage big players, high-profile players, to put players like he's done with Jack Grealish into different positions and get the most out of them, which he hasn't. Which one of the best coaches in the world, Pep at Man City, hasn't been able to do. I think he's an outstanding candidate, and what would be great about a coach like Lee Carsley or a coach of his ilk is that you go, and I believe he would be good enough to keep us up for the reasons I've just suggested, but also it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility that he does such a good job that we keep him, and he does try and move the group the team forward, because we're not going to be a team next season that's fighting for Europe. It's just not happening. Not happening in that short period of time. We could be a team that's starting to push for the top 10 if we make the right additions. And we certainly could be a team that could be playing better football that the fans enjoy seeing and will turn up for. And a team and a club that could quickly get behind a manager who is trying to associate with the fans, trying to sympathise with the fans, trying to be...
He'd be honest, wouldn't he? He'd be honest as well.
Yeah, exactly. He's played under David Moyes, who whether we like it or not, is the most successful manager on a consistent basis that we've had for a period of time. But also he's had long enough now in his own coaching roles and managerial roles to have his own ideas. For me, one of the comments there was that, I thought I just read that one out, saying there's not. Oh yeah, it was the last comments from Gav. That the fields of available managers will be a bigger risk. I don't think Lee Carsley is a bigger risk than Sean Dyche. I don't.
I think the fact that we're even talking about it says a lot. I think we've had these questions in the past, haven't we? We've always said that. Oh well, I think you've been a lot more supportive than I have. He's not doing a bad job, but hands are tired and stuff. But I think the fact that fans like you are coming around and well, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing, and we're talking. I think there's something in it. Sky Sports released something yesterday saying the current Everton board have no plans to change, and you quickly came back on the WhatsApp. I remember saying, well, no one's got the power or the money in that current board to do it. It's a club being sold. We do now know that the new board who are going to come in have a history of letting managers go who aren't putting runs together. Well, I'll ask you, Judgy. With you can either answer with your blue heart or with your very smart head. But does he now last the season as Everton manager?
No, not in either. In either frames, or not with my blue head or my, I guess, football logic. I just don't see how it happens. I think you've either got the fans behind you and the club against you, or you've got the fans against you. And you know what I mean? You can have conversion. You can have the club who maybe want you out, but the fans are behind you. Which I think was that weird time with Frank Lampard, which some of the fans was up until that Bournemouth game. The fans were behind, and maybe the club weren't. Certainly from some of the comments that were made by Frank as well. Yeah. I think Martinez has a period where Bill Kenwright desperately wants to keep him, but the fans didn't.
Yeah.
I think that statement alone, where it says at the end, the foreseeable future, they can't foresee what happens when a new board comes in. No. I think that alone is it. If that was a board that has assurances from the Friedkin group that we're not going to mess with, they would have said Sean Dyche is going to be here till at least the end of the season. And that would have put a line under it. I think that the biggest thing at the moment that's impacting our performances, in my book, is that the players aren't having him. The players are not having him. The players are not. They're not.
Half of them are out of contract. That's why half of them are probably thinking what the next move is. You've got a massive number of players who are out of contract. You've got a couple who we know don't enjoy the standard the football we're playing. I don't think it's a settled, happy, committed bunch, is it? They've all got futures to deal with.
For those who do see themselves as playing for a contract with Everton and want to play for Everton, they know that Sean Dyche is not going to be that person.
Yeah.
So it's just such a poisonous position. We've been here, look, we're probably the most experienced fans at smelling this situation and knowing what it feels like to have a manager who's just on borrowed time. And whether you believe that Sean Dyche is the best candidate out there, based on his credentials and his CV to keep Everton in the Premier League, or whether you're someone who hates him, it doesn't matter how good you are as a manager if the players aren't having you and the fans aren't having you, because those two are the most influential stakeholders at any club, the fans and the players. You can't, nobody's going to argue with me on that. If the fans are not getting behind you and the players are not getting behind you, you've got no chance of getting results.
No, and you've just said there that it's very well put. We're very experienced in smelling these things and what happens next. I sort of think we're near now. I think his time, because of who's coming in, fingers crossed, I think his time is almost up.
So one last question before it probably takes us into the Man United game, I guess. So I don't know if you wanted to cover anything else in particular before the Man United game, but one question probably segues us in really from Pad, the Irish toffee. He said, no money to improve the team. So is there anything else you'd like to see the manager do differently with the squad at his disposal? So as we go into the Man United game, this squad, this team, you've obviously spoke about the set plays, about a bit of variety in there. I completely agree with you. What does the manager need to do differently with this squad and with this team?
What I'd like him to do, he won't do, but it would be to move Ashley Young to left back, to bring Nathan Patterson in, to add a bit of dynamism. I would take Jesper Lindstrom out the side now. I know he likes Lindstrom because he's got pace when he defends. He recovers quickly, and that's a big appeal to the manager. I'd bring Jack Harrison back in, and I would start Beto. But I don't think any of those happen. I think it's the exact same team again, and again, that's where I'm frustrated, because I might not be right here, but I think it's crying out for change, and I know he won't.
That was another change, and it was definitely what I mentioned in the instant match reaction. Is that was an easy change to make a half time. It wouldn't have necessarily put us at huge risk. It's putting Ashley Young left back for Michalenko and putting Nathan Patterson on. It would have brought us 10, 20, 30 yards further up the pitch. Yep. When you've got a left-sided centre-back playing left back, and a right back who likes to cut in as opposed to go on the outside, it massively handicapped us. But he just, I mean, look, we've gone on of the reasons why
maybe he goes for it. Maybe this is, I mean, he's not soft. He knows he's off on at least the summer. He knows that much. Maybe this is a game on Sunday where he does go, do you know what? I'm going to throw it at, because we've got a Merseyside derby next, which I'll try and get a point in. I'm just going to try, and we've got Wolves in midweek before it, which dice ball may be effective enough to win that. I don't know. But maybe this is a game where he does say, you know what? I'm going to go 4-4-2 here. Screw yous. Let's see what happens. I've got nothing to lose. I'll get me 4-0 either way.
I mean, obviously the new manager coming in at Man United, typical. It's not a great time to be playing them. I think they weren't fantastic at Ipswich, but you can see already, as Jamie Carragher points out on Monday Night Football, the style, the fact that they're pressing high now. I do think, despite the way I've just brought that in there, that you're going to get chances against them. The fact that he's getting them playing man to man and pressing man to man, I think you will get chances against them. I'm not entirely sure this is the game where you do change things. I think if anything, we're going to find it very difficult. I think we're going to be defending for long periods against Man United. I'm not sure. I think if you throw Nathan Patterson against these, it's probably going to finish him for the season, one way or the other. But I wouldn't be against Beto playing, because of the fact that I think because they're playing so high, you're going to get 1v1 situations. And we've seen against Southampton away that he can and will cause defenders problems if he's put in the channel, or he's got an opportunity to go past him.
I never knew he had that in him, that offside goal, but he took a first touch and put it in. And I never knew he had that in him.
And the pace he showed just before that, where he could have got sent off, the defender, because he just bullied him, went past him and just got dragged down. But I'm not sure. I definitely get. I don't think I think the Lindstrom one's a no-brainer. To be fair, I think he's been given a decent run in the team. Hasn't scored, hasn't created any goals. All right, maybe he's been doing some doggy work on the flanks, but I don't think that Jack Harrison is a averse to rolling the sleeves up.
No.
Because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have been brought back in the first place.
Yeah. No, the Lindstrom ones, it's been disappointing so far. Lindstrom, he was someone, I think it was I checked Frankfurt, he was at, I think, and he was brilliant there. Didn't do well in Italy. But how many times have we seen that? And you know, because of his pedigree, you're getting a good player, but I think the league's a bit too physical for him. And again, I get why the manager likes him, because he's good at holding the shape, and he does help defensively, and that seems to be a big appeal. But for me, it's I'm not saying Jack Harrison's the answer, but it is time. If any change was going to be made, it would be for Jack Harrison to come in.
I've got a feeling now that the change that will be made, and he's almost set this up by the recent interview we had with Joe Thomas, is that it'll be McNeil and Ndiaye on the flanks, and he'll put Mangala in there alongside Guy and Zakore. I think possibly, for me, that is absolutely an obvious Sean Dyche play. It'd be interesting to see if he does bring Beto in. I don't believe he will, but I think one reason I could think why he may bring Beto in is there might be a train of thought thinking the Derby and the Wolves game is going to be integral to me keeping my job. Because if we get a result against Liverpool and we beat Wolves, then, you know, you're going into Christmas thinking, actually, we can probably afford to lose a few of these games because we're okay at the moment, points-wise. But if we lose against Liverpool, that Wolves game, I say, if we likely
the crowd won't forgive it. The crowd won't forgive a Derby loss in this run. No. He just won't. Everton can play as well as they want next Saturday. And we'll talk more about the Derby next week, obviously, but Everton can play as well as they want. If Liverpool turn up and go 15 points clear at Goodison and start singing Happy Christmas, Everton, the crowd will take you.
Yeah, of course. So, again, into the Man United game, do you want to see Harrison come back in? You want to see Patterson come in?
I changed it. Yeah, I mean, I've been wanting Patterson to come in for a long time because I think we're toothless down that side at times. I think Ashley Young's done well and he has got a few assists, but they're not from him attacking teams. They're from him being in a good position and putting crosses in, and crosses from deep usually as well. Or I think Patterson will get you. Patterson's got that young Seamus Coleman in him where he will fight yet to get to that touchline and try and put a dangerous ball in. I haven't seen that at Goodison Park for a while, so that's why I'd like to see that. But I'm not foolish enough to say that's going to happen. I don't think it will. But yeah, Harrison in and Beto in for me, and then just try something different. Just, you know, a point would be good in the bigger picture. It'll be ugly football again, but I'd be happy with it. But just crying out as an Evertonian to start enjoying me football again.
No, fair enough. Okay, before I've got a couple of questions I'm going to ask you at the end, Mills, but just before we do, prediction for the Man United game.
Look, let's be optimistic. Let's go for the score draw and let's say 1-1.
I'm going to be optimistic too, and I'm going to go for 2-2. I think that Almiron is going to want United to be open, expansive at Old Trafford. I think they are going to leave gaps. I think it might be a little bit like the Villa game where we managed to get a goal or two early and then get pegged back. But again, optimistically, I think we can cause them problems. But I mean, I'm looking at our recent goal record. It's 1 goal in 4 games. Doesn't make for great reading, and it's actually only 3 goals combined in our 4 games in terms of it. So it doesn't point to a high score draw, but yeah, I've got a little bit of faith.
You're going to be there on Sunday, aren't you? I believe you've got a nice ticket.
Yeah. Fortunate enough to have some friends who've got tickets at United, so I won't be in the away end, which will either be a good thing or a bad thing. I've got some nice corporate tickets, but yeah, I'll be there.
Causing trouble in the prawn sandwich box.
Looking forward to it. 2 questions then, Mills, before we go. That were not necessarily related to what we were talking about before. First one, actually, I'll ask that one last.
There was a guy I spoke to on Saturday who said he was going to send a question. I think I've seen it.
Yeah,
very nice fella came over.
I started at the end as the last one. Okay, this one, it does come back to where it was, isn't it? It's probably just your opinion on it. It's sad, but I'm done with going the game now. Not the only person I've heard say that. That was an interesting one, by the way. It's the first time I've seen our attendance drop below 39,000 in a long time. It was 38,000, I think 500, something at the weekend, which says it, says a lot in itself. Being going the game since '91, but everything about the match drains me. The football, position the club's in, the atmosphere between section of the fan base. Have you ever known a worse state? Every part of the club is damaged beyond repair.
I think the club's in a really bad position at the minute. I think everything apart from
the stadium,
the hope of what Bramley Moore can bring, and how it feels like we have been looking for the last 4 or 5 years towards getting to that point, and it's been horrible to get to it. And this is the last part of it, really, isn't it? We are going to be going to a new stadium next season to support Everton, and we are going to have a new manager, and with that becomes some sort of reset. But I think the club just feels really, really damaged. I think last season we were talking about if we went down, I mean, Everton's accounts came out and said there'd be a 12-month plan to be okay. And after that, there'd be nothing. It does feel to be in a bad place. And what you said there about attendances, every ticket inside that ground is sold. So people have got up on Saturday morning or decided in the week that they're doing something else.
And I guess you could say, look, we're getting close to Christmas. That does happen.
That's not wrong, by the way. I'm not calling no one out on that.
No, it hasn't happened for quite. I mean, look, I've got someone who sits by me who, up until the day before the game, was intending to go, and he literally said, "Look, I can't be asked making that trip today, and making the effort." He comes from quite a way away, but he only made the call on the day of the game. So I think there's a lot of that knocking about. That was Leddy, by the way. Thanks for your point, Leslie.
Does it feel like that's you? Does it feel like it's the club in itself, the club, the way the fans feel about the club? It does feel bad at the moment. That's a really good point from Leddy there. I don't recall it. Everything collectively being as bad. I think we've always had a bad coach or a bad season, but it feels like everything at the minute is.
But again, and as you point out, the 1878 are absolutely trying their best. God knows what it'd be like if it weren't for them, because they are giving you a little bit of optimism. You go, wow, and the kids love it and stuff, and it's a nice spectacle every home game. God knows how tired it'd be without them. But listen, I'm not putting completely on his shoulders. The manager plays a big part in that. He's taken every opportunity he can to dig the fans out, and I think it's cowardly, and I think it's poor from his perspective. And I think an experienced manager and someone who knows the importance of the fans as much as he does needs to be making a better effort to try and appreciate us more and to try and get the most out of us as fans. So I think he plays a huge part, and he's not helping both on the field and off the field. And again, I'm not crying out for a Lampard-esque cheerleader here. I'm just saying you've still got to read the room, and you've still got to try and connect where you can, and try and appreciate the fact that it's been an incredibly tough time for the fans. And it's an incredibly tough time for people anyway. Cost of living's going up. People are on their arses, and spending money on the club on a regular basis is becoming less and less rewarding for a lot of people. And that's the bit that I am probably annoyed more so with the manager than anything else. Right, last question, and you pointed briefly to this. It was from Adam Mack, who must have been the guy who come up to you. He said, I said hello on Saturday briefly, wanted to ask about Bramley Moore, really wanted to ask how was it? And will your recording for the club mean the podcast stops? Love the shows each week.
Yeah, so it must be the guy who came over. He got me when I was sprinting towards you to do the instant match reaction. He got me on Speller Lane, and because I had no with me, I said I really can't talk, and he went, "It's okay," and must be him. Bramley Moore was really good, but it wasn't like we got a tour. It wasn't like we were given anything. I was put in the East Stand to record, and then they very, very kindly showed me the South Stand because I asked, and then everywhere else was out of bounds. We didn't get any sort of perk. We didn't get paid for it. We got asked by the club that they wanted to try something different. Would we help? It's not going to affect the podcast. Not going to affect the podcast at all. Me and Judgy have got very, very fortunate, and I don't mean this in a big-headed way. It's not. Very, very fortunate to have good careers outside of the podcast. And me and Judgy do this because we've been mates for nearly 30 years. And we want to talk about Everton. So it's always been a bit of fun. There's nothing that me and Judgy are going to do that'll stop doing the podcast. We might have weeks off, and 2 weeks off or 3 weeks off when life comes at us, but it's a free YouTube show that me and him get together, have a couple of pints and talk. So it wasn't a big perk. I know we got a couple of smart comments from a few places, and I want to be the bigger podcast here. Maybe not. Yeah, well, I think people were generally unhappy that Across the Park podcast got picked to do something on their channel, didn't.
And by the way,
I'm a big fan of all podcasts. I watch them all, Blue Boys, Toffee TV, Bullens, Toffee Blues. There's some absolutely fantastic content creators out there. Judgy, you had a game of footy with them in the summer, all nice fellas. And if any of them get anything, I'll support it all. We see it. We see them getting things, and we support it.
And yeah, I just want to echo that from my perspective. I'm absolutely behind other podcasts. I think the reality of the situation, I've usually put it, is a lot of these podcasts do it as at least a part-time job, if not a full-time job. And fair play to them, because it's tough. I know how tough it is trying to do it on the side, and to do it and to try and drum up enough, interest and income to make it a job is admirable. And therefore I can appreciate at times if they think, oh, why have they got that pay? I think the language from my perspective, I'm not talking for you, Millsy, the language the Toffee TV used was out of order. I think having a go at Julia Bowles and having a go at us because we got given an opportunity. Just to be clear again, Millsy got the opportunity because he spent a lot of time at Finch Farm supporting the ladies and the women's team, and we are going to touch on that before the end. Obviously, that brilliant derby victory. He spent a lot of his own time, free, no payment for it, going down and trying to help the women get more exposure and using our podcast as a platform for it. So the club, fair play to them, recognised that and said, you know what, Millsy, you've spent a lot of time supporting us. We want to give you the opportunity to go back. So I think it was a bit short-sighted for other podcasts to be using that as a chance to dig the club out or to dig us out. I know you didn't want to say that, Millsy, but I don't mind saying it.
Oh yeah, and Julia's she's become a good friend of both us and the podcast itself. She speaks to us both and she helps the podcast. And yeah, look, it's the way of the world, isn't it? But in short, Bramley Moore looks like it's going to be an amazing stadium. It just needs personalising at the moment. It's Lango O'Rourke's handover hasn't happened yet, so when Lango O'Rourke's handover happens, I think you'll start seeing big Everton badges, the Everton badge, and the branding on the seats and things. And what interesting concept was when I did speak to one of the guys there, and I don't want to bring too much trust, but I said, the branding on the seats isn't there yet, and he was like, yeah, it'll come, mate, and there's room for sponsorship branding on seats and things as well. So marketing heads are turning already.
Decent. Just on that briefly before we finish, someone sitting by me on Saturday, one of my mates actually said, "Are you taking your seat on the last game?" And I was like, "What?" He went, "You're taking your seat?" And I went, "How? We've got to rip it off." And he went, "No, just a little screw there." I was like, "Is the plan to bring screwdrivers on the last game to take the seats off?"
Do you know what? And this is a rumor, and it could be way off. But someone said to me there'll be an option to actually buy your seat. Like, I don't know how expensive that would be. Or
proper Everton auctioning the seats off like 20 or something. Yeah, I had this vision of everyone walking in with like plastic little toy screwdrivers to get the screws off and get the pizza. I'm not encouraging that behaviour, by the way, but we'll await Everton's guidance on that situation.
So you said there, Judge, I think it's a nice, but we've started the show where we're being quite, we're deflated and we're not in a good place. But me and you are the owners of two female children who's, because of some of the women now who are in the Women's Super League, are not opening doors, they're kicking doors down. Our daughters may have the potential to have a life that they couldn't have as footballers in the past. And Everton women, I took my little girl, she was just turned 3 that week, took her to the women's derby, took Noah as well, he's a big fan. And for her to get Everton beating Liverpool, and it doesn't mean a lot to a 3-year-old, but as she grows up, those photos will hopefully mean a lot. And the women were just unbelievable that day because they came up against a very, very good Liverpool team, and Everton women, they defended for their lives. The limitations on the men's team are also with the women's team. They can't go and buy the best players, so they live within the means. And you've been down there a few times. I think we've discussed this. What strikes us about them is they're such lovely people. You're willing these people to go on because they're great with our kids when they see them, and they're great with us. So to go down and watch Everton beat Liverpool was brilliant. I know you couldn't go, but you watched it. Are you the same? Is it feeling like that was a nice family moment for a lot of people?
Yeah, I mean, look, my daughter's massively into football, but she hasn't quite got the bug to watch it at the moment, and she plays that much of it. It's almost like, look, I don't want to watch it now that I've been training 4 times a week. So she does play a lot, and admittedly, that's probably a next developments as you need to watch it to understand it better. But that's another subject. And I just want to credit. I mean, we spoke about negatively about the impact of Sean Dyche and his team and his comms on the fans. If Sean Dyche wants to look at someone and how they can carry the mantle and the flag and how they should be representing the club, go and watch Brian Sorensen. Look at his comments after the game. Look at his comments before the game. Look at regularly how he interacts with our media team, which on the women's side is almost zero, by the way. We've got, Sarah Halpin, who pretty much just does all of the stuff for the women and you. But apart from that, they've got, whereas Sean Dyche has got media outlets aplenty, not including the likes of Sky and everyone else who wants something from Sean Dyche. If you look at how Brian Sorensen conducts himself and how he tries to keep the faith and optimism, and as you say, under the same constraints, all right, maybe he hasn't got the negativity from the fans because it's a different atmosphere, different environment. But he's took some big defeats this season and that group out, but he never stops trying to make them feel positive, trying to get back on the training ground, trying something different. I've seen it myself. So that's where, again, it's go back to why the divide in the club. There couldn't be more of a recognisable divide between the way that the women are trying to do things and the way that the men are doing things.
Yeah, it was great to see so many young Blues at that game. It was a cold day and it was wet. And the fans stayed behind to cheer the women off, and the women got a picture in front of the lower Gladys Street with the fans behind them and stuff, and just a really nice moment. And that's only going to get bigger. That Women's Super League and the bounce, it's only going to get bigger. So it was great. I know a few of the women watch us and stuff. So if I don't see you before, hopefully see you all soon for another show. But thank you so much, honestly, for my little girl woke me up 7 a.m. Monday morning, singing Spirits of the Blues, and that's all thanks to Merseyside's Derby victory.
Yeah, well done, Everton women. Can't say the same about the men, but hopefully we'll have something to cheer about. Hopefully we'll have something to cheer about next week. So anyway, thanks very much for tuning in. Sorry we're not in the studio, but it was just great to be back talking to Millsy again. And again, like I've said at the start of the show, I endeavour to do this more often and do it obviously on a regular basis, face to face. Thanks as always. Enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully, as I say, we'll have something to cheer about next week. But as always, up the Toffees.